Circling as a modality was developed by Guy Senstock back in 1998. And from then on, a few different schools have sprung out from that foundation, one being Circling Europe that was founded by John and Sean. The two main ways circling is practiced within this school is the birthday circle and surrendered leadership, which we will get to later. In birthday circling, one person gets the attention from the group. And the practice is to be with this person in their world, exploring what it is like for them to have the attention of the group, while also sharing what comes up for us as we're with them. This is the way of circling that we're training to lead on the SES. And obviously through that, we're developing our skills to notice what goes on in us. And this was very hard for me at first. It seemed like what was going on inside me was mostly the act of trying to notice what was going on inside me. To an extent, I had to make the journey out of my head and down into the heart and the body, and learn to notice and decipher the messages that were coming from there.
By practicing, you pay attention to, your felt sense, like what is it you're feeling in the sensations of your body, and just my heartbeat. What's that like to actually pay attention to? And it becomes really subtle. It's a bit like a microscope then. So what at first just seems like, I'm just here. When I pay attention, it's like, oh yeah, there's some kind of feeling in my heart. There's like energy in my legs. There's there's some emotion of the flow between us. And there's a kind of developmental process. So the more you do it, the more subtlety you can access, and the more you can kind of handle the force. Because at first you can't. It kind of scares you and throws you off because it's really disconcerting to feel these things you've not felt before. So as becoming present, I'm actually discovering kind of the inside of my experience. And by paying attention to the connection with you or with someone in a practice, I'm getting an insight into what's really happening on the inside of connection. So often people don't realize that, why is it that I never kind of get on with that person? And then when you become present, you discover that, actually, I remember one time I judged that person quite strongly, and actually I can feel a kind of pain in me that I did that. And then you share that with the person and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that. And yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that did make me feel distant from you. So you discovered what was on the inside of which previously was just distance. So if we're discovering what's on the inside of connection and what's on the inside of ourselves, what actually is connection between human beings? It's like a kind of force we have that, you want to be close to someone and you don't want to be close to other people, and I would actually call that force love. So when we're always talking about love, often we don't really know what we're talking about. Is it like physical attraction But no, it's this force that seems to be between us, and it has such an effect. Like if you're with someone that doesn't treat you in a way that's good for your being, can really harm you. I mean, people are really hurt and actually damaged by connection because this force is so strong, it's so impactful. Like when connection's going well, you can feel an ecstasy and life can be amazing, but if it's not going well in your connections, it can really affect you. And I think that's what I would call love. So by practicing circling, I think what we're actually trying to do is become present to what love really is. And it's not this soppy love song, it's it's fierce and it's intricate and it's delicate and it's more powerful than you can imagine. It's all those things. And what we just keep discovering in it just seems more and more meaningful, and it also gives us a sense that we're discovering life in a sense, like what's on the inside of life. So I actually think that's really why I circle. Like discovery process.
For me, the continuous discovery of my lack of self-love was a big part of my initial journey with the practice. But as the poet Rumi once said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And this is exactly what it felt like circling was doing for me in the beginning. It was slowly shining a light on all the stories I had created in my mind that kept me from allowing all that self-love that was already inside of me to emerge and to be felt.
It really can be a journey. It can be destabilizing and difficult sometimes to know what it is you're experiencing. You can feel like people are giving you too much attention, or it's not going to be easy. Like the struggles you have in your normal relationships are going to come into the practice, but that's actually great. But I don't want to give it just a rosy picture. This is a serious practice. It's, we're very dedicated, and because we have to be.
In a way, it's a kind of wild practice. It's a trust in an organic process. If you're leading from trusting in experience and being rather comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen, at points for some people that something can be perceived as harsh. Someone gets triggered, or someone feels unfairly treated or unlovingly treated. But there's also space for that to be looked upon, talked about, connected about.
It's almost like a dojo in that sense. And it should be taken as seriously as like karate or something. You're really developing to be present in the world is not a small thing. To be more truthful is not a small thing, because it has big consequences when you're more truthful. Your life will go differently the more you tell the truth. And I see it only gets better in a way, but sometimes you have to face difficulties before that happens.
I feel a bit afraid of expressing myself, out of care. But I felt kind of distant during the practice. Very distanced. I felt that I couldn't, come close, and I felt irritation. I felt my impression was that you just wanted to be in focus, and that made me irritated. And saying that I feel a lot of care for you. Yeah, I do. I feel like
it's scary, this scary.
Yeah, but I feel like you want me to give you something, but not giving something back. It feels like you're wanting something from me, and I don't know what it is. It feels really scary to say this to you. I feel a lot of care and I feel a lot of respect. But it's like I can't reach you. I can't. Yeah.
And so that I can't reach you, it feels such an important expression, and to own that even more, like it's not his responsibility.
No, I know.
There's some ways we've learned to help the process. So we use principles. So there's like 5 principles we use. So when you're with someone, it's not just like, okay, be present and start exploring. It's like, what do I do? There's this principle like owning your experience, which is it's a really clever kind of psychological understanding actually of when you're experiencing something with someone else, it's very, very easy to think they are causing what you're experiencing. But I think we all know that someone can say something, and there can be 3 of us, and we all have a different experience of what they said. And that's because I think differently, I've learned different things, I've had different experiences, so I'm filtering everything that comes through. And if I learn to acknowledge that in my speech, it can transform connection.
You were talking about being angry and I didn't see any anger. Feeling sad, I didn't see any sadness.
Seems like the need for connection is really in you.
Yeah.
And it goes out to him a lot.
Yeah, thanks for that.
When you said that I was talking about anger and you didn't see the anger, I was talking about sadness and you haven't seen the sadness. It felt sad. Like I've heard you saying you haven't been what you have been saying, but you are. Like making my experience wrong.
I don't mean to dishonor your feelings and just expressing what was happening inside me.
Yeah, I think same here. A little bit more my awareness.
Do you still have a need for connection now?
Coming back.
I still feel very insecure.
Going away again.
I feel very vulnerable and somehow I feel so much pain.
On the group and what's happening in it, and especially the person being so close.
I just want to be able to feel you, and I haven't before.
Do you see that that's where the owning gets? It's like if there's any outside, like for me to be able to feel you, you need to.
Yeah.
So it's not about him.
The experience that I'm having, like it's my experience and it's about me. It's not about what everybody else is doing. There's a deeper thing happening in me that I can tap into.
These are my feelings. No one is giving me these feelings. I am kind of creating these in the moment. So this has to do with me somehow.
I feel exposed. Like I took off some clothes and now something in me is like, oh, I want to put them back on. And then to take responsibility for it. It's not like, oh, the camera is making me unsure, or you, Andreas, you're doing something to make me feel unsure, or you should be doing it different. Like to me, it's really like, yeah, it's part of me that feels unsure of myself.
Yeah, I experienced many things being projections that I was really certain it wasn't. It's like, no, this is how it is. And then suddenly it flips and I see, no, okay, that was me.
So if I say to you, you're making me angry, usually what that will do is create more defensiveness, more difficulty, more struggle. You'll feel blamed or accused or likely, unless you're very skillful, you're going to have to defend against that. But if I just say to you, like, oh, when you said that thing, I was experiencing anger. And oh yeah, and it's quite difficult for me to even share that with you. That's a whole different ball game then. Like, I haven't said anything about you, I've not made you right or wrong, and then you just get to respond.
I feel there's oftentimes this deep power arise in me when I step into that process of owning my experience. There's this power and this kind of like light that arises in me, like the moment that kind of layers that I was holding on to protect something that I didn't want to be seen. Not just by others, but basically that I didn't want to see in myself. Like when those layers drop away, or I reveal it, then it's like I feel that power and that experience of like, oh wow, like here I am. Like here's the depth of me.
I clearly remember one instance on the training where I experienced the power of this principle firsthand. We were practicing leading small circles, and my fellow student made a mistake while he was leading. And my immediate response was actually joy. And he saw that. He saw the smile on my face and asked me what was happening. As I owned it and shared honestly about it, I found one of my barriers against self-love. The story that says that I have to be the best because this is the only way that I'll be worthy of love. This old program that I've been subconsciously running for many years was suddenly so easy to see for what it really is. A lie. It was a very empowering feeling.
When you own your experience and acknowledge that you've got your own filter, you actually empower yourself. Like, if you made me angry, then like you said, I'm always a victim to what you can just influence me, and then I'm like done. And I've got to rely on you being a certain way for me to not feel things that disturb me. And then if that's what I'm in, which is very easy to be in, then I'll learn how to control others better. And that's your only option if you don't know how to empower yourself and go into that kind of vulnerability to like, actually I'm angry. And then you might discover you're angry because you've always been angry with how you've been treated by people in your life, and you've not expressed that. And that's quite difficult to learn that and to then re-feel that anger and to realize all the lost potential you had because people could cross your boundaries. That can really inhibit your potential. So that's a lot to realize. But that's way better to realize that and to learn that than to put all that anger on you when it isn't really about you. You know, it might be like 0.5% about you. And when you own it, usually people are so generous actually, when you don't attack them or accuse them, they usually will be like, oh yeah, actually I was a little bit short-tempered with you. You know, I've been having this problem, you know, with my wife and I'm struggling today. And then you automatically feel connected with them hearing that, and yeah, their humanness comes out. And that comes from your leadership of owning your experience, which is a capacity we can always develop.
If you're going into that, I've got space for it. And anyone who doesn't, they can drop away and I won't be having them getting in the way.
I feel uncomfortable with that, so I would leave if that were to happen, because you said that this had been mind-blowing to you and that you wanted to debrief. And I'm still really interested and intrigued, and like that seems much more interesting to me. So if this is going on, then you know, you do that, but
I feel a bit of challenge to you because it feels like there's some judgment.
yeah, there is a judgment. Like, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it's not about him.
Yeah.
This is something.
But I have this issue, like this is like coming up in me a lot as well. This like game of who's getting the attention and I'm not getting enough attention, or that's what it's triggering me. But I don't need the attention. Oh, this is such a mindfuck practice.
After the first weekend of my training, I was starting to grasp some of these principles. I was starting to grasp some of the practice. And immediately I was quite excited. This seemed to be such a powerful way to work with our shadows, and a powerful way to actually help people. Something I felt I could use in my other work, to help people. And this turned out to become a major theme on my own hero's journey with this practice. Because every time I came from a place of wanting to help people in a circle, it kind of backfired on me. People responded poorly. as if I, in some sense, were making their experiences wrong somehow. With some help, I soon realized that I was starting to unravel one of the big paradoxes within this practice.
What I would say is circling can definitely be therapeutic, but I would say it's not a therapy, and that's really important.
A huge part of my motivation for why I love circling is because it leads to transformation for people. It can be hugely supportive for people. And when I came across circling, I was already into coaching people and personal development. And I saw circling happening and I was like, this is leading to more powerful growth. But, and there's a big but, the actual practice of circling someone is not focusing on them growing. So there's this weird paradox of when you're able to let go of the need for someone to grow and actually more focused on connection and what's arising and being with someone in their world, somehow that's leading to more powerful growth often.
In my life and in what I see around me, there are clear empirical proof that circling does something good for people. It's it deepens relations, it allows people to be themselves more. I see a lot of people leading happier lives, partly due to circling. And at the same time, there is this fundamental principle in circling of not changing what is there, just being with. And that is apparently quite transformational.
The circle doesn't have any direction. It's not an arrow like this, it's circle. So it means there's no way to go that is better or worse. It's just, you're already here. The present doesn't want something from me. Nothing needs to happen.
Therapeutic experiences happen. So experiences where you feel like you develop an integration of your trauma, or you realize that the anger you keep feeling with lots of people in your life is not actually because you're angry, it's because you're really deeply sad.
It's super powerful shadow work. Things that we're not conscious to us come into consciousness. The dark stuff, the light stuff, all of it to be integrated. I think our shadows are our unlived life. It's the aliveness that hasn't got to come into being yet. And through this practice of presence together, these things can be mirrored back to us so that we can access more of our aliveness. It's if you're a plant and you have sunlight on you and water, you grow. And the sunlight and the water is our truth, being with you and our shining a light on who you actually are.
But you wouldn't come to circling to be okay, well, if you went into a room with people circling and said, I keep getting angry with people and I want you to help me find out what I'm doing. I think what you would get from that is the impact of okay, so you want me to be here in service of you, is that what you're saying? When you say that, I actually feel a little tense, or I'm wondering if you also see that I'm here as well.
What happened for me was slightly different. As mentioned, I really wanted to help people. It was quite difficult for me to just stay with what was there for the person without actually trying to fix it. In the beginning, I would often have the experience that we were marinating in the feelings. Marinating in anger or sadness and having no obvious direction or intention with it. As I was holding back on bringing this, anger started to rise in me. I wanted to tell people to snap the fuck out of it and look at that dragon and face it. Stop being in what I perceived as victimhood and take back the reins for their lives. But I also held that back. I guess a part of me was worried that I was wrong. And another part was afraid of the potential confrontation if I shared it.
For me, there's an edge there of like powerful, healthy confrontation that might piss someone off. No bullshit compassion. Like, I care about you. I don't want to tolerate this anymore. I don't think this is serving you anymore, and I'm not gonna play a part in it. And for me, that's an awesome expression. The other side of that is trauma can be fucking deep, and sometimes our desire for them to be beyond it is what I would describe as a countertransference. It's maybe something that they're also feeling and we're picking up on it, and then we can kind of just make the problem worse because they're already under all this pressure that they're putting on themselves to change, which is actually the very thing that stops them meeting themselves and loving themselves.
The pressure to do it fast is actually accelerating what's difficult for the person. So that's where it gets really interesting. That's why we're like paying attention to what's there and just trying to discover it, because it usually solves itself. Because we're trying to fix something quickly, we don't really know really what it is and what it can often be for this person. You get underneath it all and suddenly they just reveal like, I've always been pressured by my father to be like good at everything. And there you are, like giving them a plan to get better. That's another mirror of what they're struggling with. And they won't know, so they'll kind of do it again, but the deeper part of them is just like, rah, like, I don't want that.
And when I see an opportunity for real growth with someone that I care and love, then I will bring everything I've got in relation to that, but always be like very interested in what's mine, what's theirs, trusting their innate capacities for growth. So there's no problem with anyone wanting to lead circling and get skilled at leading circling so that they can support other people, because it can do that. But if that kind of slips into the way that you're leading the practice in a particular way, then you will slip out of leading circling unless you own that need in a particular way where it's really alive and you're open to see how it impacts the other person. And challenge is a good thing. Yeah. But ideally you can challenge and bring that toughness from a place of real honor for where they are as well in their personhood.
And in a way, this is exactly what I wasn't doing. I wasn't honoring their journey. My need to challenge people and bring them closer to resolving their issues was exactly that, my need. As we were diving deeper into the practice, I realized that it was actually about me wanting to seem clever and wise, just so that I could gain validation and thereby love for being the one that could help people. It was another attempt at trying to fill up that hole inside me, the place that was supposed to contain my own self-love, with admiration from other people. But what I learned was that no matter if I understood it or not, just being with the other in their world, with no agenda or judgment, somehow they ended up transforming more than if I were coaching them on the subject of their despair.
Just by being deeply seen, there's like this natural creative impulse comes through, or evolution, or transformation that just happens in front of our eyes. Someone didn't get them there. It was like we held this space that then this creation could happen within.
The next principle is an invitation to be a full yes to what it is that you're experiencing in each moment. To really allow and meet what is actually real and alive for you, and to dare to move with it. And trusting that even though we might think that our experience is not welcome in the connection, sharing our embodied truth enables a deeper presence and also supports others to look more closely at themselves and gives them the opportunity to really meet and connect with you. Quite amazing depths of self and other can be discovered through showing up in this way, even if at first your experience doesn't make much sense.
My experience is communicating something to me right now that I can choose to listen to. And I don't know yet what it's about. I don't know yet what might happen in the connection. But yeah, the invitation is, like, can I kind of step like into an unknown with this experience, and then be open to what arises from that.
In a way, it's like inviting you to take these leaps of faith with what's there for you, because it's easy to just hide stuff away or shove it away and think it's irrelevant or not wanted. And the practice actually reveals that often the thing that we think is like the most shameful thing, if we're actually willing to bring it, it's like that can create the most intimacy and can really touch others and can really touch ourselves.
And it's relevant. It's not just me experiencing something. It is happening in connection with the collective, with the world. And that bringing it out can very often contribute to others and to more connection.
Can you lead yourself in the silence each moment from this sense of surrender? But see if you can be an inquiry of where your leadership is coming from, and maybe even be in that experience of not knowing or not being sure what the truth is for you. And our hypothesis is that your truth is not only a gift for your own being, but it's a gift for the collective, that it gets to experience more consciously your truth, even if your truth enables the collective to experience more of its pain or uncertainty. Being true to yourself, but also being true to the impact of others and the vulnerability of following your truth in relationship to them.
Like, it's like life is constantly offering things through me to the field. The trusting is very much about a surrender to that experience. And then as it unfolds, like kind of allowing myself to be guided by that step by step. It's like following a trail of breadcrumbs to the gift, but I don't see the next breadcrumb yet.
What we just did, this is always available in the practice. Like in each moment, there's just actually so many decisions you're making. And there's so much call for what actually is your truth and how actually are you being impacted by others. And the sweet spot is where it feels like there's an alignment to your own truth, but you're fully available to the true impact of others and what that's doing to you and your truth, but also fully open to how you as a being are impacting the group. And if there is really a separation between those things, when we get to the deepest level of the practice, I haven't discovered it yet.
There's always like a reason why something is showing up in you, and nothing is wrong. And trying to hide from what's happening or what is naturally occurring in you is denying some truth. So trusting your experience for me means that I can always put words to what is happening, and there's some truth there. So why hide from that, or why try to get another experience?
Yesterday I was observing a lot, trying to find out like what's happening. And then there was so many times where something came up in me and I really wanted to share it, but then I didn't because I was afraid of the feedback I would get from it or the judgment that I would put on myself. So I kept safe a bit. And then in the night when I had gone to bed, I realized like that's how I grow, with having feedback, and that's why I'm here. Because in my life, I don't really get that much honest feedback.
I get a sense of fear when you look at me. And I imagine that there is something in our connection that is stuck from yesterday. And I'm wondering if that is present in you now. that has changed a lot for me. I've revealed a lot today, and then in revealing, I've also then like experienced really deep encounters and situations that have been profound from daring to participate. Or I fear that I'm too invasive in your space.
Which makes me rather curious about you, because I don't really feel you in my space. So how can you be invasive here?
There is something when you say that I interpret as a wish from you to let me know that I don't mean anything to you.
It sounded painful. My sadness is here because you do mean a lot. If you didn't mean anything, I wouldn't be sad.
I feel a genuine warmth coming from an appreciation for you saying that.
Oftentimes the willingness to stay with what's actually there a little bit longer than the habitual response to kind of label it or judge it or suppress it or whatever leads to a gift and a connection. Like being in connection with someone and they're having an experience of, for example, like being very joyful, but I'm sitting there and I'm like kind of feeling bothered or maybe a little bit angry. Then like knowing myself in the past, like very quickly I would have like shoved that aside. Like, oh, this doesn't seem to fit in the connection, or like, this feeling is not supposed to be here. Yeah. But like trusting my experiences then, okay, right, this is here. Like what happens if I just bring it into connection? Like, oh wow, actually I'm sitting here, like I'm witnessing your joy, but I'm actually feeling a lot of anger and contraction in me. And then getting to explore that together.
One of the people who taught me a lot about this principle is my friend Matthäus. His willingness to share honestly about his experience often stood out during the weekends we met on the train. Like this time, where he was sharing about his experience in a somewhat challenging circle.
I am alone. I don't want to be alone. I feel sad and left out. I don't want to feel this way. I expect someone to come and fix it for me. Someone to come with the helping hand. But at the same time, there is strong energy to reject this helping hand, and some anger directed towards people. Why you have been hurting me? Why you have been doing pain to me? Fuck you. Yeah. I notice you smiling. What's the smile?
I'm enjoying your honesty, which is, in my experience here, also been a theme that people have reacted very positively to how easy it seems for you to share what's going on with you, even when it might be something that could be perceived as negative, or something you might not be proud of, or something that you're struggling with. You have a lot of courage and strength in that regard.
I couldn't at the beginning notice some soothing and warmth coming from you, seeing that in me. And when you continued and was more and more rejective towards it, and again like feeling this anger impulse, like the body was responding, wanting to jump even, and just like hit your head, block you from speaking.
Though this was the first time someone told me they wanted to hit me during an interview, It was surprisingly uncomplicated to be in the receiving end of this. To be honest, in the moment, it was actually just inspiring to witness Matteus open up so unapologetically to his experience. To see him take this leap of faith that is so central to trusting your experience.
And you don't know how that person's going to respond. So that again, there's this leap of faith and there isn't a guarantee. But the whole practice is built on these leaps of faith that have shown something beautiful. So we keep going with it. And other people have that same experience of like that disgust opens a door for someone like, oh yeah, I actually feel disgust with that. Oh my God, why am I tolerating this thing that I'm actually disgusted about?
In the session just before, John was asking the group, do you tolerate this? Or some of you having the experience of like not being that interested in this and kind of waiting for that to be over and something else to happen. And there were quite a few who had that experience. But in my experience, like my engagement with myself and the group just shifted instantaneously. And I perceived that the group was just enlivened by that question. I felt gently pushed by John to not put up with just tolerating anything in a circle and to do something about it. Going from something that feels very numb to that and just kind of quickly. Yeah, to me that's really beautiful.
Your trust muscle is increased and then keep going and people end up having a deeper trust. That's a consistent thing that comes out of it, that people are more trusting in themselves, more trusting of others. They're not taking bullshit, they still have boundaries, they can not blind trust, but there's a more inherent trust in life that actually, like, as we let go of control, there's already something here that's wanting to thrive and is like trying to flourish.
And on a bigger scale, it's about trusting that even if I can't make sense of what's happening in the circle, in a conversation, in my life, that there is something it's leading through or a way it makes sense.
The invitation to trust that comes in, it's like it makes us access more of what's going on in our bodies. And we're less in right and wrong thinking and triangulating about some topic and more in what's actually going on in us. Because there's like, we have bodies that have all this aliveness in and all these messages, and we can be pretty shut off from them, and circling supports that contact with our hearts, our guts, our balls, our legs, and therefore can support us in re-engaging our intuition, let's say, in our gut, tuning in to all this like wonderful sensory perceiving, expressing life.